Justin Dodd, NRG Realty Group.
NRG Realty Group. This is interesting because, your name sounds like you guys are a real estate firm. But when I looked at your logo and saw you on your social media posts, it looked like there was an oil logo next to your acronym of a name. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys are involved with the oil and gas industry.
Yeah, sure. So, by nature of our business, we're a commercial real estate brokerage company. But our niche is working with oil field service companies and companies that are associated with the oil and gas industry. And so we're based in Dallas, Fort Worth, but we don't do deals in Dallas. And so someone will say, hey, what's the market like in Fort Worth, or what's the market like in Dallas? And I said, well, I really don't know, because I pour all of my time and effort into the shale play markets, what's going on in South Texas or West Texas, out in the Permian, and all across the country in the shale play markets. And so when I started the company, and specifically about the logo, it was like, okay, how do I let people know that even though I'm calling from a 214 area code, or my office address is in DFW, how do they know that I'm real about the oil field service? And so we decided, okay, let's put a oil derrick in the logo, and then try to put it in industrial buildings. So about 90% of our deals are going to be these industrial, field offices or metal buildings with a small component of office with some yard space. How do we put that in the logo? And so that's what we came up with.
Kind of interesting. A few things that you said in there, and I'm going to circle back in just a moment or two. But the NRG, is that any affiliation to any other company, or is that just your own acronym amongst your own partners and yourself?
No, so there was a company that now it's been acquired, and so it doesn't exist. But it was 77 Energy Services, and it was Aubrey McClendon, a spinoff of Chesapeake, and their website used to be 77 NRG. And so if you say NRG fast enough, it sounds like energy. So NRG Realty Group.
Oh, it's like a license plate deal. Okay.
Yeah, that's about as creative as I can get.
Okay. Well, there was NRG was in the news recently, made a big purchase. And, a lot of these, you mentioned Chesapeake in there, and I know Conoco and Whiting, for example, they all have little subsidiary companies, generally not named, the same, but some cases they probably are. So I just thought I'd check because it was in the news, and I didn't realize it was, keep it simple, stupid. That's about what it is, energy. So
right. And there's a really big natural gas conglomerate, and they used to own and they might still do, but the Houston Texans Stadium is NRG Stadium. And so us being a super small company, we've got 5 people in the whole company that people have asked, so you're the owner of NRG? And I'm like, no, I don't own the stadium that the Houston Texans play in. Not yet.
Not yet, but hey, who knows? Maybe someday you will, right? Because the new stadium might not even have people. It might just have holograms of people and cardboard cutouts. The way that
I own a cloud server somewhere that
exactly, esports, right? That's the next wave. But hey, you mentioned something about phone numbers, and the kind of the fear of an unknown phone number or not the right area code, and that's one thing that's never really been talked about. And I would love, and it's over now. I think that those days are over, but I remember early in 2010, 11, 12, even into 13. Man, up in North Dakota, people would just go get a cell phone just to make sure they had that North Dakota area code, because they felt it was so important to have an area code from the shale play that they were trying to do business in, because carpetbaggers and out-of-staters and everything else. I assume Texas was the same way, because when I talk to people, they always mentioned the area code type thing. Talk to me a little bit about just that whole strategy, because honestly, everybody did it.
It is, and I think you're right. I don't think it's so much more right now. But so when I started focusing on the energy sector, it was 2012, and we were doing a lot of deals in the Eagle Ford and a lot of deals out in West Texas, and particularly in West Texas, everyone knows that the area code's 432. And, there is a bit of a good old boy network and they want to know that you're for real. And then there's also stigma against people from big cities, in particular. Oh, you hear comments like, Dallas boy, or, oh, they're from Dallas. Dallas has that stigma. And so calling from a 214 number, I wanted to separate myself and be able to speak to somebody with a local dialect. Each one of these markets has a local dialect. And so I refused to change my phone number, because I felt like once we got on the phone, they could hear the knowledge that I had, and that I was really dedicated and believed in what I was doing, and loved the fact that I was working with oil and gas companies. And so I was able to get beyond that, but certainly something that comes up and came up a lot more back then, because like you said, there was a lot of people that were coming from out of town, trying to sell anything from, to anybody. And
you had guys just renting, coat room space just so they could hang their hat, just so they would have,
right.
just so they'd have a physical address in the state that they were trying to, wine and dine the oil companies from. It was, looking back, it was so much. It wasn't unethical, really, because the intention of the people was to grow into those markets. It wasn't. That's why, to me, it never bothered me, because a lot of unethical business really bothers me. It really does. But that one didn't. It was, I get that, and that was just, $100 to $200 little marketing, hubcap on your car type of a thing. So anyway, that's why I feel pretty comfortable talking about it, because we all did it. Even it's just that was the nature of the beast for a while there. You just had to show that you were committed at some point.
Right.
Anyway,
we've done it.
Go ahead.
We have a 432 phone number. And so that's what since we do commercial real estate, we help companies acquire buildings either through lease or purchasing, but we also market them for lease and sale. And that means that we have a sign out front. And so if we have a building in Midland, we have a 432 number on the sign in front of that building.
So let's talk a little bit about the different shale plays that you are in, I guess, or that you have your pulse in, because you mentioned that you do business outside of your geographical proxemics where you're located. Where are you seeing some activity? I mean, we're seeing that Jerry Jones is buying mineral rights in the Haynesville, which all of a sudden people are looking at East Texas again, and then you got Warren Buffett buying the natural gas pipeline a week after, it goes belly up. So, there are some macro major moves happening, but my guess is, just the way that if you're a realtor and in a real estate company, man, you're working the phones and working your emails and checking everything else. So what are you seeing out there?
Yeah, so we get a lot of our information from the people that we talk to. And so, again, all of our clients having something to do with the oil and gas sector, that's who we're on the phone with every day. Of course, we have a lot of connections on LinkedIn where we're seeing updates. So we see it on both sides, right? So we're helping companies dispose of surplus assets, where they're pulling out of a market. And then we also help companies acquire new assets. And so maybe they are pulling out of North Dakota and they're looking for a shop in West Texas, or they hear the rumor, like you said, East Texas and the Haynesville and, in Louisiana is picking up. And so they're looking to get something there. Our bread and butter market is going to be West Texas. That's where we do about probably 75% of our business. But because, our clients will say, hey, thanks for helping us in West Texas, we also need a shop in the Haynesville, then we'll go and we'll help them with a facility in East Texas. We've done transactions in every single shale play. Right now, we're working on projects, in the Haynesville, in the Eagle Ford, in the Permian, including like the Delaware, southeastern New Mexico. We've done plenty of deals in Oklahoma and Colorado, Wyoming, North Dakota, and then also Ohio, Pennsylvania. We've done disposition projects where we're getting out of surplus facilities in Louisiana, Mississippi, California, and Arkansas. Some of the plays that aren't really as active anymore. where we're seeing, most of the activity still is going to be in the Permian. We went through, the onset of COVID, which was March and April, where it felt like everyone shut down and there was just nothing happening, no visibility in the market, trying to figure out where operations were going. And now that we've gotten into, July and August, we're seeing, some decisions being made as it relates to their facilities. Some both, hey, look, we're putting this on the market. We're going to shut this facility down. Others, hey, we're expecting a contract. We have work through the end of the year, and we need this new facility.
What's your background in oil and gas? I imagine there's probably your family is in it.
They are, yeah. So like the passion for me started pretty early. So my dad worked in oil and gas. They drilled oil wells, and he was primarily doing, back in the day, it was all vertical wells. Hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling didn't even exist. And so he was doing shallow Gulf of Mexico wells, drilled all throughout South Texas and some up in the Panhandle, like Panhandle of Texas and Western Oklahoma. And back then it was, it wasn't how much oil are you going to get? It's, are you even going to get any oil? And so growing up, I would get to go on trips. I'd get to go visit well sites. And because of the volatile nature of the industry, my dad made a big point saying that, you're not going to be in the oil and gas industry. You're going to do something else. I'm not going to let you come into oil and gas just freely and work in this industry, which is so volatile. And so I had an interest in real estate, and it was like, okay, well, I really like real estate. That's what I'll go to school for.
Yeah, oil's way too volatile, so I'll get into real estate. Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What, are you going to open a restaurant next and just get the trifecta done, or what?
Well, the best part of that was I graduated college in 2009, and so we're coming out of the 2008 financial crisis, and there were no commercial real estate jobs. Nobody was hiring. They would accept a resume, they'd interview you, and maybe they just didn't like me, but I wasn't getting job offers.
Tell me about it, man. I lost that's when I lost my business. I had a real estate publication. So we had a publishing. So we were dealing with the whole publishing paradigm getting its ass kicked by the internet and free information and Craigslist, and couldn't give, I invested over $250,000 in our website, and we didn't get back $5. We couldn't give away stuff. Right. And, it was real estate pub was 80% of our revenue. So boy, after our 30th, 40th bankruptcy notice from a builder, developer, realtor, that was the end of that. So I went and took the steady check for 3 years at a news organization. And so anyways, just to validate your point, 2009 was a very tough time for real estate. And that's when you got in it?
That's when I was trying. So I graduated. Yeah,
but that's a good time. Everything is low.
Well, and that's what they'll say. When you cut your teeth in a difficult, tough environment, then that's a lot better. You'll understand how hard you have to work to get things done versus if you stepped into a hot market and they was just coming towards you and you were able to just take it and receive it and handle it versus having to go out and hunt and kill it and find it.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because you're very articulate and you're very you flow with knowledge the way you speak, and it is only evidence of somebody who grew up in it. And I was right; you did grow up in it. And obviously, I'm a professional interviewer, so I can pick up on these things. But when someone will interview someone like me, for example, who's only been in the industry for 10 years. I have a completely different presentation with my speech pattern and everything than you. You for me, if it's farming and that sort of thing, absolutely, I can talk about that till I'm blue in the face because I grew up around that. That's what been my osmosis education. So for you, I just noticed it. That's all, and I wanted to point that out because to me, it seemed like you grew up in the industry, and I know that's really important for people to know that if somebody did grow up in the industry, they have that extra layer of knowledge than over somebody like me who's really only been in the industry for about 8-10 years now. So it's anyway, I just wanted to point that out. I don't know if you want to comment on that. Newbies like me versus generational people like yourself when it comes to the industry, because it's a reality. And quite honestly, what scares me is a lot of people like me are getting leadership roles, and I don't know if they should be.
Yeah, well, I do appreciate that. I think part of it certainly has to do how I grew up. I think the kind of bigger aspect of that, which new people can come into, is the passion for it. And so if you are truly passionate about something, you're going to pour your heart into it. And that's going to come out when you're talking to people about it. You talk to some guys that aren't passionate about what they do, and you can just hear it. They're not excited about it. They haven't spent the time to really master their trade and understand what's going on, and you can tell that. And I hope that when I talk to people, I overcome their objections about, like we talked about, the area code and being from Dallas, by speaking to them about the knowledge and the markets and the passion I have for it.
So one of the reasons why, I got into oil and gas was, originally when I started this thing, it was, I was doing the podcast and I was doing some writing for some newspapers and magazines. And I was essentially creating content for media organizations. And back then it was, I was making a living remotely, so I've been doing remote stuff for 20 years now, all but 3 years of it successfully, which is kind of neat. But so ironically, when I did the oil and gas, the Bakken boom was going on, and I went out there and I just, thought I'm going to actually kind of investigate against oil and gas, because that was the climate change movement. And I'm an environmentalist at heart, and, a hippie at heart. My friends call me the corporate hippie and all these different things, because, I eat salads every day and, just all kinds of different, we'll go on walks and, all kinds of just weird things, that today's person doesn't do every day. So anyway, when I got out there, it totally changed my perception of the oil and gas industry. I saw how environmentally invested they were. I saw how they allowed economic opportunity. I saw how they actually build community and culture like I've never seen any other industry do. Up till that point, I had covered healthcare and government and farming and banking and all kinds of different industries for the last 20 years. Because I did magazines. We did a business magazine, we did a real estate magazine, we did a city magazine, we did a faith magazine. So we did all kinds of different industries. The oil and gas industry was the only industry I saw that still allowed empowerment, opportunity, and entrepreneurship at its core. What I mean by that is there's very few industries where just a regular worker can figure out a way to make something more efficient, more streamlined, and more economical for a company. And that company will say, you bet, we'll give you a contract, because most of the companies now will actually try to take it from the employee. And in some cases, they're contractually obligated to do so. Let's not forget that Steve Jobs and Wozniak had to check with Hewlett-Packard before they could do Apple Computer. Steve Wozniak worked for Hewlett-Packard part-time on the weekends, and because of that, they owned his intellectual property, and they had to go and get the okay from Hewlett-Packard before they started Apple. And that was in the 70s. So to me, the oil and gas industry showed opportunity. The thing that attracted me to real estate was that as well, was that just that pure form of capitalism where it allowed somebody to go make money and then also give back. And that's a true capitalist. It's not just making money. No, it's giving back too. It's giving back to that community that has been so generous to you. And I saw that with oil and gas, and I saw that with real estate. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, about how what brought you to there. You said that your parents or your dad was trying to, get you away from oil and gas, yet you're doing both real estate and oil and gas, the two riskiest. Like I said, throw a restaurant in there and let's just call it the trifecta. I mean, you can't get any more riskier than oil and gas, real estate, and restaurants. So talk to me about the passion you got.
Yeah, so, again, trying to get out of college and find a path for life, and what was I supposed to be doing? And I had started working a job. I was doing, small residential real estate, helping people find apartments. And at that job, a gentleman came in one day and he needed to get a luxury high-rise condo. And so I met with him, drove him around. It turned out he was the president of a company that focused on the energy sector, and they had a real estate brokerage, they had a development division, they also had a general contracting division, and then we had a sister company, which was a $250 million equity fund. And so driving him around, he said, hey, talking with him, he's like, you know a little bit about oil and gas, you know these markets, like, what are you doing at this apartment gig? You should come work for us. And so, as a 23-year-old kid, that was, oh wow, a real job. Like, we dress up and I show up, early in the morning and don't work weekends, and I also get to focus on oil and gas. Like that sounds great, right? So I jumped ship, and with really no concept of what we were doing. I had no experience. I had no contacts, but it was a start. And so at that company, I worked there for 3 years, and it allowed me to develop relationships, from small startup companies to some of the biggest oil field service companies that are out there. And just going through that path, and having that company support, really allowed me to build the foundation. And in 2014, when oil prices collapsed, I could see the writing on the wall that company, which generated a lot of its revenue from development construction of these oil and gas facilities, that they were going to wind it down. And so I stepped out in February and said, okay, if there's a downturn, there's going to be a lot of trading of property. People are going to need to get out of stuff, and there's going to be people who are willing to buy 50 cent on the dollar deals. And all that's going to be, trading, which is brokerage. And so I started NRG in the middle of a downturn. I saw the opportunity that if we could provide, a higher level of service than what was being met by the local professionals, that I should be able to have some success. And so NRG, was formed, and it was really just me. It was a one-man shop. I always say we, because in my mind, it was bigger than just myself. And so I worked out of a bedroom in my house for about a year, and then had a gentleman named John McDaniel join me. And then we had a full-time marketing admin, and now we've got, a full-time broker that lives in Midland, and we have an office in Midland, and we've got junior brokers here in our office here. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride over the last 5 years, but we've been super successful, and we do work with some of the biggest companies out there. But the fun ones and the interesting ones are the entrepreneurial startup companies, because they're onto an idea, or they have a concept and they're trying to put it out to market. They've got relationships and they need a facility. And so we'll, help them navigate going out and leasing their first property when they've never leased a property before. They know how to run the oil and gas operations, but when it comes to real estate, they've never done it. And so it's not so much like hold handing as it is we get to explain the process, and they're very interested in it because they know that this is something they're going to continue to do, and need more facilities. And as far as giving back to the communities, I think we see that in a lot of the projects that we do, because they're hiring people, so they'll come in and they'll need a facility, and then the next thing is okay, well, where can we have our guys stay? Where can we go and hire new people? Where are we going to get parts for our store? And it's all about getting a local presence.
Do you guys just do the commercial side of things? Do you do the land leases, the minerals, that sort of thing, or is it just primarily buildings and commercial properties?
We don't get into any of the minerals. It's all commercial properties. So we don't do residential. We will help companies lease properties for man camp purposes, but we don't manage any of those properties. It's really just the commercial real estate aspect. And when we talk about commercial real estate, we do office leases. So we'll help companies that need a sales office. But majority of our work is helping companies, buy, sell, lease, or dispose of industrial facilities, the metal buildings with the art space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the early indicators of an economy. Kind of they're the second or third way, or I guess tier on the ripple. One way or another on things. So that's interesting to me. And you're seeing, so West Texas is where primarily your business is. You go outside of there, And how I guess Shale Play USA, the whole United States is your yard now, huh?
It is, yeah. I mean, and so whenever we go into an outside market, what we'll typically do is engage a local broker. So there's no replacement for boots on the ground knowledge. We kind of have the larger macro view of what's going on in the industry, and then when we get tasked with an assignment, like Chesapeake had us sell one of their properties in Oklahoma City. And in that instance, we have the corporate relationship with Chesapeake. We will do a cooperating broker agreement with a broker that lives in Oklahoma City, who has the ins and outs and the nuances of who's buying what at that time. And we'll partner with him and we'll cooperate on the transaction to get the deal sold. Same thing, like if we're doing an acquisition assignment and they need a property in Wyoming. We'll go out, we'll survey the market, we'll engage a local broker who can handle like showing the area manager through the properties and also provide options to us. Well, we'll continue to be the single point of contact for our client. So we really have reach, to do deals all across the nation.
How can people get in touch with you or reach out and find out some more info?
So they can go to our website. It's www.nrgrealtygroup.com. That'll have all our contact information and also has a lot of properties that we're marketing right now. But the best thing to do is go to our website. You'll get our info on it and just reach out to one of us.